This episode has been brought to you by justinform.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to justinform.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
All right, we are recording. We're going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2. What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this segment of Mi Casa, Su Casa, and as usual, I am your host, Niko House. Today, I am with our research and investigative team, David and Terry of Voices. What's going on, Dave and Terry?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hi there, Niko. I'm actually on the road as we're on this show, and that's one of the beauties of 21st century technology. We can drive and talk at the same time.
Oh man, the supporters here, they're very familiar with investigative work and driving from the car, because that's pretty much how I got started. When I broke all that information with the Hillary Clinton or with Bernie Sanders campaign and the Clinton super PACs and all that good stuff, I was literally in my car 24/7. I loved it. You know, I like being able to be on the go and have your phone, like you could post videos whenever you need to and wherever you're at to give people the breaking news. And this is indeed some breaking news. The other day, you all remember I covered the fact that Ocasio has the most progressive anti-war platform that I have ever seen to date, at least in modern politics. I know the only one I can think of that was that, like, of somebody, a recognizable name would be Henry Wallace with the FDR era, right? So I want to cover this, and Dave and Terry thought it was really important to cover this too, because we need to break down why this is so important. But I want to go ahead and read to you all a section of this platform. So Ocasio starts off by saying, since the invasion of Iraq in 2003, the United States has entangled itself in war and occupation throughout the Middle East and North Africa. As of 2018, we are currently involved in military action in Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Pakistan, and Somalia. By the way, those last three are huge, and I'm going to talk about why it's so important. She mentioned those a little bit later. But she goes on to say that hundreds of thousands of civilians in these countries have been killed, either as collateral damage from America's strikes or from instability caused by the United States interventions, which is also extremely important to mention. Millions more have fled their broken countries, contributing to the global refugee crisis. So I think that's a good place to stop. So really quick, if you all don't mind, I would like to say really, really fast why it's so important that she mentions those last three countries, Yemen, Pakistan, and Somalia. Now, a lot of people don't often discuss these countries because, well, the news almost totally avoids it. Mainstream media does. Unfortunately, we even see a lot of our independent counterparts ignore those countries. I mean, I don't know if y'all seen it covered a lot with independent. I haven't. I think I'm one of the only ones outside of maybe. Nope. I see writers cover it. That's about it. I see independent writers cover it. That's literally about it. So the reason why is because we don't really have an active military force in those regions, so people don't really equivocate U.S. intervention to a place like Somalia. However, we have been very good at covering up our, I won't say refugee crisis, because it's not a crisis because we have the means to handle it, but we do have a huge refugee influx because of our involvement with Somalia, for example. And that's because we don't use our forces per se. What we do is we put a couple of soldiers down there, and then we let our CIA and our PSYOPs do the work. We pay rebel groups off, and that's how we end up in enforcing conflict in those areas. But nobody talks about it, because then you're going to have to address the question, well, why, right? Why are we involved with Somalia? Why are we allowing Saudi Arabia to bomb Yemen? However, Israel, for example, can have their soldiers kill 50 people with sniper fire, innocent people with sniper fire who are merely just protesting at a fence. So that, and her saying not just our airstrikes, but our intervention, it proves really, in my humble opinion, that Ocasio has a very strong grasp of just how serious and how involved the United States is overseas, and how deceptive we can be in pretending that we're anywhere in this world militarily for freedom.
I'd like to go ahead, if we can, and take a look at three different reactions to her victory. And the first one, can you read that, Niko?
Yeah. So we've had three different reactions. The first one is Venezuela, because it's funny. I know if anybody follows me on Twitter, good God, you think that Venezuela is like the USSR, right? They talk about it for literally everything, which is, of course, by design. Then you have the second reaction, which is cultural Marxism. For those of you who don't know, cultural Marxism, or even social Darwinism, it's really the antithesis of Darwinism. People have this idea that cultural Marxism is like, I don't even know what they think it is, actually, because I was going to try to define it, but I don't think they know what it is. Go ahead.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, right. It's to deceive you. It's like you think cultural Marxism is this, but it's actually that. Haha, we can use it however we want to.
Exactly. It's whatever it's going to get the job done. Yeah,
exactly. Whatever confuses you.
Exactly.
So, then the third is you have international. Which what do you want to explain what you mean by that, Terry?
That's a Google translation, and I don't speak German. I barely speak American, but the Google translation, it's really an interesting take on it because it's the German point of view from this is how they're running the story. And they did come closer to it than Venezuelan wing from PBS. And what was and the cartoon. Make sure when you hit the link that you take a good hard look at this cartoon. My dog is trying to get her union scale here, and I apologize.
No, they're used to dealing with my animals all the time. So
those three links will be there. And just what we're kind of trying to make a point of is, and we came from the last show, people are not taking millennials seriously.
Yeah.
If there was a moral to the story out of the last show, you're the biggest voting bloc in the country, and nobody's paying attention to this. This woman has a degree in economics, correct?
Yes, she has a degree in economics from.
Somebody we might want to listen to on an economic platform. She actually has platform down.
Yeah.
That's almost unheard of nowadays.
I know.
And
right?
there was a stink raised over. She took that platform down and put it back up, and people were paying more attention to it than what she was saying.
In fact, usually, so there's this, and I wish I could remember the name of it, and I should have looked it up. But it's a theory in politics that once you start getting closer to the general election, you actually veer closer towards the middle versus veering to the right or the left, right? So, like, a good example of this would be Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. By the end of their election, you legitimately could not tell the difference between their platforms. They both wanted universal health care. They both wanted to pull us out of Iraq and Afghanistan. They both were, trying to reform immigration. And so what Ocasio has done with the national attention and really at this point, international attention all on her and the mainstream paying attention to her, she has gone into more detail about how she is not going to put up with a war profiteering economy, and how she is not going to put up with, if you want to say we can't pay for something, okay, fine. But don't say that we can't pay for something and then push through a $700 billion military budget for wars that nobody has approved of with a Congress who sits back and lets it happen. So that's interesting that she's doing that. And in my opinion, that just kind of shows that she's doubling down on what, like I said, I like to call progressivism. Everybody in this group has three different definitions of what it is, but we do know it's the right thing, is that she's about peace above all else. And like my friend Lee Stranahan, who's a conservative Republican, he said, you know what, I may disagree with her on almost everything else, but it doesn't matter because I can tell two things. She's not corrupt and she's as tired of war as I am. And right now, those are the big problems that are preventing us from from pursuing any other issues. Everything else we want to argue about is small if, we're living in a nuclear winter.
Exactly.
With no jacket. So
in a cardboard box.
And no shoes.
And no shoes. Yeah.
We'll be back to Valley Forge again.
If we ask for shoes, is that Marxism? Is that communism? If we get shoes for nuclear winter, they start? No?
Yeah.
I think as long as we have the same shoes. Do we?
In nuclear winter America, shoes walk you.
As long as they're all Air Jordans, we're fine.
Ah, man. Yeah, as long as you get them in China, they're like $3 there.
Exactly.
We got about 8 minutes left. So people can take a look at these links, take a look at, here's what she's trying to say, here's how it's being covered, and what's our solution here for how do we get word out that there's actually somebody paying attention to issues?
Well, yeah.
This is the first person I've seen actually taking a look at, wait a minute, we've got a constitution that is the law of the land. Here's how we're supposed to do this. And she probably will be her congressional representative for that seat because of the makeup, the background of that. And if you can real quick kind of give us an update on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ocasio is running out of the 14th district in New York City specifically, that is made up of the Bronx and of Queens. And so the interesting thing about the Bronx specifically is that the Bronx is highly dense with Puerto Rican and other minorities, but specifically Puerto Rican because she is Puerto Rican. And she's her family is from the Bronx. Like, she lives in the Bronx. She lived in the Bronx her entire adult life, lived in the Bronx until she was about 5 or 6 years old. And then she moved to Westchester because the Bronx school district is unfortunately not good. And so her parents brought like a little 3-bedroom rinky-dink house after her dad became an architect. Unfortunately, he did pass away during the recession, and she was working hard with her brother and sister and her mother to make sure they can keep that 3-bedroom house so they can continue to go to school in that district. And so she was on the ground working. She even posted a picture of her shoes where there was a hole in the shoes from walking in the rain. And she finally had to get a new pair of shoes, but she was denying interviews to go knock on doors. She was walking into people on the street, giving her platform. She's done all the hard work already, right? Then on top of that, she got an insane amount of support that was kind of unexpected because I honestly, and I'm sure that you all would agree, I think that the mainstream probably didn't think that she was a Democrat socialist before they brought her on. Because they kind of looked a little bit perplexed when they started out. They're like, so, you like Hillary, right? Well, no, I voted for Bernie Sanders. Oh, I don't like where this is going. Well, would you consider yourself a capitalist? If by capitalist you mean democratic socialist and free healthcare and no war, absolutely. Hold up, bitch. Did you just say it's Democrat? Who fucked this woman?
Well, I saw that.
They look crazy at her. They were confused. I encourage you all, go look at the interviews. All of them. They brought her on because of how she looks, which is drop dead gorgeous. She's well spoken. She's from the Bronx. She's 28 years old. So she'd be the youngest congressional. She would be the youngest ever. I thought it would be just for a woman at first. No, it's youngest congresswoman ever. Period. She's 28 years old, Puerto Rican, and she would be the first actual Bronx native, actually lived in the Bronx, has a zip code in the Bronx to win. And they jumped the gun because they were thinking about ratings. But then they brought on a Democratic socialist, and so now they're not. They brought on an anti-war candidate, and they didn't know it. The same people that were doing this, beating the war drums for Syria, remember that, guys? They just brought on somebody who called them out for it, right? So by doing that, they've emboldened a candidate who's already living in a blue district. And then
I was watching.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say I was watching the news the night of the primary, and they were still talking about how Crowley was going to have no problem winning.
Yeah. It was a walk-off home run for him, right?
Yeah, it's it was, and she blew him out. Blow
by hard work. Yeah, the demographics favored her, but I mean, there are situations where the demographics favored Hillary Clinton too, right? Awkward. But when you work harder, and there is something to be said about being able to appeal to the average person, and going out and talking to people and shaking hands, which Trump is great at. It's people say like every time they meet Trump, because I like to use totally like one-off examples because Trump is like the antithesis of Ocasio, but the tactics are always the same. You go out and shake somebody's hand, it's a lot harder to not like them after that, right? That's right. Yeah, it's a lot harder to hate them after that. I've had people who have hated me online. They meet me in person and we're like, wow, you're not as bad as I thought. So, hey,
I don't usually get that good out of them. I'm usually as bad as they thought, but
it works. It's better when it's females though, because usually when I'm like try to DM a girl, I'm like, what's up, girl? Oh, she's like, I don't know about you. That she sees me in person, she's like, oh, are you the same one that was messaging me? No, I was then, but now I'm not. It's shallow.
It's because you're using the wrong font on your text messaging, so that's why they.
Big deal. Emojis lives matter. Emojis matter, okay, people? So, all right, so we have about 3 minutes left. Dave, you want to go ahead and tell your final thoughts on this Ocasio victory in the anti-war platform?
Well, I think that in the grand scheme of things, what this lady has done is she has given us a wake-up call. If the millennials are coming out and putting out their voice, and it's being heard to the extent that she was in a very grassroots level, regular American citizen kind of a way. Although, many people from different parts of the country than the typical, white Anglo-Saxon upstate kind of people, we're finding that this is starting to resonate with everybody. We're talking about peace. We're talking about, the military-industrial complex being taken to task here. And that's a pretty important, I think, point that has a lot of resonation. It's going to resonate throughout this country by a 28-year-old woman that is articulate. She's an economist. She's, got the ability to do the hard work, as you mentioned. And I think that there's some significant pieces of the story that the American people have got to start understanding and start recognizing as significant. That's what I see coming out of this.
Good stuff. What about you, Terry?
I just want to. The whole point of this show was again, and we're kind of dovetailing in with the last show we did with you that the millennials are not being taken seriously. You're the largest voting bloc in the country as of sometime this year. Take these guys seriously.
Take these women.
What more can you say? And this kind of coverage that we're seeing with this show is an atrocity. I'd be ashamed that these people are calling themselves reporters like I am.
Yeah, well, we go through that every day. Speaking of which, I do want to give a quick shout out. Happy birthday, Julian Assange. Donald Trump, how about you do us a favor? Prove that you're not co-opted by the deep state and release Julian Assange on his birthday. That would be nice for a birthday present. We would greatly appreciate it because there's no reason for him to be locked up in the embassy like that. You don't even have a charge. So how about that? Ocasio, Alexandria, I want to say thank you for doing what you did. Thank you for putting in that work, even though the odds seem insurmountable. Thank you for releasing such, you did such a deep dive. You did not pussyfoot around the reality of our military-industrial complex. And that's something that we've seen done in one form or another by almost everybody, especially like before they win. I think that you are the definition of the American dream. It's not only to be an American, to thrive in this country, but to also change the country for the betterment of others who are affected by the actions of the United States. And that's something that you have done just by making such, having such a momentous victory and a race that absolutely mattered by literally outworking anybody else. That's the American dream. And so with that being said, Thank you all so much for watching this segment of Mika Says Su Casa. And always remember, people, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Thanks for tuning into that segment of Mika Says Su Casa. Make sure that you subscribe. If you can, support the network by going to our Patreon link, which you can find in the description below. Also, join us on Just Inform. But remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.